Let's not forget, you dynamited rock next to millions of dollars of paintings.
Within 80 feet.
Within 80 feet. I was trying to explain to our registrar. I think I told her 200 feet, and she was having a conniption fit about that. She said if a flake of paint falls off, she will haunt me in hell. And by the way, you're building in a floodway.
Correct.
Not a floodplain, a floodway.
We put together a heat map of all the dangers and all the things that concerned us on this project. And it was probably the longest list I've been a part of creating. Made probably people ask, why are we doing this job?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good feeling when looking back and seeing some of the challenges we've overcome. But, you know, since August, we've just been really focused on how do we make sure this next endeavor we do has that exact same level of success.
To try to impress an architect that has done work all across the world to the highest standards, Flintco had to have the very best on that job, or that man would be extremely upset. And I was in Wichita when he said it, that Crystal Bridges is the best thing that he has ever done.
Scott, also want to visit with you a little bit about the vision of the healthcare campus.
She's wanting to do something that Murdaugh with Canon, their chief architect, said he has never seen done anywhere in the world before.
Wow.
You take an operator like Mercy, you add Cleveland Clinic. Keep in mind, that's like oil and vinegar. You do not bring multiple big companies together and say this is what we're going to do. It will test the mettle of Flintco. It will test the mettle of myself, our owner. We have no room to mess up, but the cards are stacked against us.
Miss Walton is known throughout the country. Give us a little peek behind the curtain about what it's like working for her.
Well, you know, Alice is...
Welcome to the next episode of Flintco Talks. It's your boy Dano. We are live in Bentonville, Arkansas today. It's a big week. We're celebrating 75 years in Arkansas. We're celebrating the opening of the Crystal Bridges Museum, the next phase. And I've got three people that had a big part in that. I'm happy to have them here today. The first guest is Scott Eccleston. Scott, we're glad you're here. Scott is the president of campus planning and facility management for Art and Wellness Enterprise. We have Flintco's own Jesse Evans, construction director here in Northwest Arkansas, and Mr. Patrick Horrath, who's vice president here in Northwest Arkansas. Thank you guys for being here today.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. We're excited to highlight what's going on in Northwest Arkansas. We're excited to talk about Crystal Bridges. Scott, for our listeners that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you found yourself in Northwest Arkansas and now working for Alice Walton.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think I'm old school. You know, I have a son that feels like he can flip between jobs about every 6 months and get a promotion. I don't know how he does it. You know, I've had basically a few jobs in my life, right out of college. Scott Hunley and I remember we said we're never, ever going to be broker than we are leaving college. So why not start our own business? We learned the hard way. You know, I think our first year in business, the accountant said, I need you and both your wives to come to my office. I've got some bad news. And I was like, how much bad news could we have in 1 year? And he says, well, you made too much money. And I said, no, I don't think so. We brought home $4,500 a piece. That doesn't sound like too much money. And he says, well, before you leave here, I need a check from each one of you for $18,000. My wife cried, Scott's wife cried, I cried, Scott cried. But you know what? When you're self-employed in a design landscape business, you learn every role. Mm-hmm. People often ask me, how'd you prepare for the job that you now do? Go get self-employed. You will learn everything. You're a parent, you're a banker, you're a preacher, you're HR, you're everything. So, Scott and I did that for, 15 or 16 years. And, my relationship with Scott is super tight, great guy, super smart person. I'm just telling you, he's one of the smartest guys I know. Mm-hmm. But, we were kind of transitioning out. We went through the boom of Bentonville in Northwest Arkansas, and we then experienced the bust in 2008. And I heard this guy speak early on at the library and said, we're going to have a museum in Northwest Arkansas. And, it's going to have grounds, it's going to have architecture. And, it was real early on. really conceptual. And that was in 2006. And I sat there and I thought, you know what, that would be a perfect job for me. I think that I'd really enjoy doing that. I knew nothing about art, but, the grounds, the buildings, I felt that I had a pretty good grasp on. So I weaseled my way into an interview, and it was at Sam and Helen's house. Mm-hmm. And they said, Alice will be doing the interview. And I was like, oh, that's great. Let's go all the way to the top.
Yeah.
And it was like a roller coaster for 4.5 hours.
Wow.
We had ups, we had downs, we just covered a lot of things. And so she ended it and she said, I'm going to give you a week. I thought that'll be my shortest time ever being hired. And she said, I'll give you a week. I want you to come back after you explore the grounds and everything. And she said, come back and tell me what is going to be the theme. What's going to be the program of this 100+ acres? I left that house, amazing house, by the way. And I thought, I have no idea how to even get on the grounds. And what am I going to tell the guy at the gate? By the way, I'm testing for a job and I need full access. And so I walked in there and she said, you got to go to Crystal Pond. I could not find Crystal Pond. I had no idea where it was. It didn't look like it does today. And so I went to my wife and I said, the bones of the land, I mean, it has good bones. Like, what in the world am I going to do to go back to Alice Walton and tell her this is what we should do? So I took my 3 boys and I took Kelly, and they all wore these little hard hats. And, I think my oldest at the time was 8. The youngest was probably 4 or 5. And so we started walking through the woods. And I was like, Kelly, I need inspiration here. And we got like an hour to get it. So no pressure. And, about 30 minutes after you watch little boys, all 3 of our sons are out there. It takes about 30 minutes for them to detox from electronics. Mm-hmm. And after they detox, next thing I know it, I have one jumping in the water. There's this little creek. And I was like, well, he's doing his thing. The other one picked up this big stick. He was whacking a tree. Next thing I know it, he's up in a tree. And then the third one, he had this turtle. I don't know where he got this turtle from. And then they were like gone. And I was thinking, And I said to Kelly, what if we based a theme of Crystal Bridge's landscape on finding our inner child?
Oh, wow.
And we would get lost and we would just find nature and we'd find that peace. So I cobbled up a 4-page sketch and kind of just with some bullet points. And the time had come, and so I went back and she said, well, it's been a week. Tell me what you got. So I sat down and I took some pictures out and I showed her, what my 3 boys were doing. And I said, Alice, what if I take you back to the days that you were on your horse and you explored and you found that spring, Crystal Spring all over again, and remind you of when you were playing hide and seek with your brothers? She just smiled and smiled. I thought, just quit while you're ahead right here, Scott.
Yeah, this is good.
Just quit. And so I did. And she said, well, is that all you got? And I was like, I should have kept going.
Dang it.
And I said, that's all I got. And she said, that's all you need. And she said, I'm going to put you together with Moshe. That's how she said it, Moshe. And she said, now you keep him in line. And I said, well, I don't think I'm going to keep a world-class architect.
Right.
I don't think he's going to hear what Scott Eccleston has to say. And so 2 weeks in, I get this call about 10 o'clock at night, and my oldest answers the phone, and he said, some guy named Moshe Safdie's on the phone. And I was like, give me that phone right now.
Immediately.
And I will never forget. And Moshe and I talked about this week. He said, Scott, he said, I heard that you have Alice Walton's trust, and I need to adhere to what you have to say. And he said, that's not going to happen. And I said, well, I don't need it to happen. And then he grilled me for about 5 minutes to make sure I was capable of doing what he thought I needed to be able to do. And he was about ready to get off the phone. He said, well, it's time for me to call Alice. And I agree with her. I think you're the one. And that's when in 2008, March of 2008, my story began.
Wow. That's awesome. What a great story. What a great opening. Thank you for that.
You bet.
Jesse, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up here at Flintco in Northwest Arkansas.
So in 2007, I was looking for an internship. Career fair came in. Brent Farmer came to Pittsburgh State University. And
A gorilla.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, sir. Go Gorillas.
Yeah.
Give them a little shout out here. Got an opportunity to come down here to do an internship. My daughter was born 2 weeks to the day before I started my internship, so that was a pretty cool deal. Unfortunately, leaving her and coming down here was pretty tough, but got put with a pretty good group of people that, gave me a great opportunity and pushed for me to get hired on full time. So finished up my last semester of school, came down here. That was 2008, January 7th of 2008. So I'm 18, 19 years in. I've had an opportunity to work on a lot of projects throughout Bentonville since 2012, especially with the Walton family.
Mm-hmm.
Got hooked up with Crystal Bridges, or Momentary, in 2019, and kind of just had an opportunity to keep progressing, moving, working with Scott and the team, and it's just been a great opportunity.
Awesome.
So,
love to hear it. How about you, Mr. Horrath?
You bet. So my first experience with Flintco was on a distribution center in Oshaleta, Oklahoma. I went to work for Baker Concrete. You know where Oshaleta is, Scott?
I do. I think I'm the only one.
I thought he made that up when I heard that story the first time.
No.
It has a population of 5.
It really does. Yeah. And so I was saying earlier, Scott, that not being from Oklahoma, you hear these names, they sound made up, but now that I've lived more Oklahoma adjacent for a long time, I get used to the names and understand them all. But, so I packed up everything. I was living in St. Louis, lived in Illinois my whole life, moved out to Bartlesville, actually. It's the closest town to Oshaleta, and came to work on this mega project. It was the first mechanized distribution center for Walmart. And it was a big transition. It was a big transition for me. The working with Baker was great. But the Flintco folks, they just inherently took me under their wing. They didn't have to, right? I'm the trade partner. I'm trying to figure out what I can do while I'm there. It was the end of the job. We didn't have a lot of staff left from Baker to train me, but they just helped me out. They didn't have to, and they did. And coming out of that job, it was clear that these were my people, and this is where I wanted to move and where I wanted to start my career. And so, moved over here. That was in 2006. My wife was graduating with a teaching degree, and so, places that are booming for construction, typically booming for school teachers. So she came out here too. We thought we'd stay here for a couple years, get some experience under our belt and then move a little closer back to St. Louis. And just the growth and the things that this community can offer you is just been amazing. And here we are 21 years later, and we've just been blessed with opportunity after opportunity by this community, and by the people building here, and it's been great. And now, I don't think we're ever going to leave. I don't think there's anything that can make us leave. And every project we do seems like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I was just thinking this morning, when we had the Crystal Bridges project, and Jesse and I talked, how this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity, the creek flowing through the middle, and just working with Moshe Safdie and the level of detail on the concrete, everything about the project. And then I was describing our lunch back in August and how you kind of laid out the opportunity in front of us for the Bentonville Healthcare Campus. And I don't remember talking for 45 minutes after that. And just kind of overwhelmed and humbled by the opportunity to be a part of such a great program. And, right here, right? Like you're not having to travel somewhere to go do a job like that, like most contractors have to do. It's getting put right here in our backyard, just like Crystal Bridges, is pretty cool.
Certainly.
That is awesome. So, Scott, one thing I wanted to touch on before we get too far into the conversation is your employer and who you work for, right? Miss Walton is known throughout the country, I mean, Northwest Arkansas, but the country, as a distinguished individual for the things that she does, the vision that she has, and give us a little peek behind the curtain about what it's like working for her and kind of how she's challenged you in your role.
Well, you know, Alice is one of the most passionate people I've ever met. Woman, man, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that she does. I was on a boat with her the other day, and she came screaming into the dock with me. I was like, oh my God, where are the brakes? And she says, settle down, Scott. She said, I've been driving a boat since I was 7 years old. Of course, I was puckered. You may want to edit that out. But I literally thought I was going to start crying. I was so scared. It's passion in boat or passion in architecture. There's several iterations of Alice Walton that I've gone through. One of them was on one of the very first projects that I ever did. And, you know, we opened up the grounds before we opened up for the public. So, you know, we were installing art in 2009. And then again, a major installation, 2010, this James Turrell Sky Space. And I will never forget that darn Mr. Turrell. He owed me 5 visits, you know, being an artist. Well, he didn't show up for any of them. And then I get word that he's coming into town, and if he doesn't like the Sky Space, then he's going to blackball us. And I was like, blackball us? I mean, I was like, I was new to art, and I was like, that don't sound right. And meantime, we're putting on this rock on this Sky Space, and every rock had to be sawed. So they sawed it 2 inches thick, every rock. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't use fake stone. Every rock had to be natural. And so this guy was literally out there for 6 weeks just sawing rocks. Mm. And then that Mr. Turrell comes, and they said he's going to pull up in a black vehicle. And so I go up there, and he told the gallery that he was not happy that there was a bridge out there. You know, the bridge for Razorback Greenway. That was before the Razorback Greenway. And so I meet him up there. Well, and you always take the executive director and the chief curator with you.
Okay.
You do not put Scott Eccleston in front of an artist. Well,
important safety tip.
That's right. Yeah. And Mr. Turrell is world famous, right? And he's building this Sky Space, and it's complete, and now he's coming to check it out. Mm-hmm. He told the gallery owner that he did not want the executive director. He did not want the chief curator. He only wanted me there.
Oh, boy.
So he pulls up, gets out, looks like Santa Claus, doesn't say one word to me. I tried to shake his hand. He starts walking down this sidewalk, and he gets to that bridge. I mean, he walks right by the Sky Space. I was like, well, you know, he knows what a Sky Space looks like. He designed it. But he bypassed it, and he went to that darn bridge. I was like, here we go. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting there, and he turns around and he walks up to the entry of the Sky Space. And the guy gets on his hands and knees. He starts starts crawling on his knees, and he's feeling every stone. He feels the stone, and then he crawls into the Sky Space, and he feels that stone and the slick stone, and then it's a basket weave of stone on the inside. It's very intricate. Then he sits on the bench, and he kicks back. And then we had the most uncomfortable additional 5 minutes of staring at each other. I think I went from the lawn chair with Alice Walton to this guy.
Yeah.
And then after 5 minutes, he says, I'm going to base all other Sky Spaces on this one.
Wow.
And I said, well, that is fantastic. And I pull out a Sharpie, and I said, Mr. Turrell, I'm going to need you to sign this piece. And he says, if you know me, I don't sign any pieces, any artwork. So he says, you can put that Sharpie up. And I said, well, Mr. Turrell, you owed me 5 visits, and you showed up on none of them. I had to defend the rock, the pink concrete. I said, therefore, I think I'm going to require you to sign your name. And he says, I think I owe you that.
Oh, wow.
And so he went right into that mechanical room and he signed his name. Alice signed her name. And that was my first experience with artwork.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What a great story. What a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
But you know, I will just tell you, you can have an owner that's not passionate. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just not as good.
Right.
I mean, she scrutinizes, she touches, she feels, she's into the interior. She loves craftsmanship. You know, I think that's, you know, my first work with Crystal Bridges, you know, you can't hide anything, Jesse. I mean, the concrete is exposed. You don't hide sheetrock. You can't hide all your mistakes. You just can't do it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the Frank Lloyd Wright house, you know, that we built. The Frank Lloyd Wright house, we took it apart, put it back together. It warped like nobody's business. Didn't think we were going to get it back together. Had these 3 guys drinking beer across Crystal Pond who were Frank Lloyd Wright at Taliesin architects telling me if I cheated me, they were going to find it. Better use the right screws. All these stories, right? But you can't hide anything in that house. There's no sheetrock. Mm-hmm. And so you can't cover the mistakes. And that's how I think Crystal Bridges is. Mm-hmm. And that brings me to Alice. She grew up in a Faye Jones house. And so craftsmanship is celebrated. Mm-hmm. I got to see Jesse's work at the Momentary. We were hemorrhaging for time. We were at the last minute. We had this glass exposed addition to the top of the Momentary. We had impossible challenges, time frames that nobody wanted to meet. And I got to see Jesse's craftsmanship. You know what? We think that's all about nailing and hammering and making sure it's straight. No, craftsmanship goes beyond that. Craftsmanship to me involves good leadership. Mm-hmm. Because good leadership appreciates good craftsmanship and inspires good craftsmanship. So if you have an architect that appreciates it, an owner that appreciates it, and then a company like Flintco that appreciates it, then you can pull off the amazing. And I think that really started for me whenever I saw your work at the Momentary. A tough scenario we put in, but I think that readied him for the additions at Crystal Bridges.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about the Momentary for folks that aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, so it's an old craft cheese factory that we turned into a contemporary art museum. Mm-hmm. And I think I got a call early November of 2019 that said, hey, come down to the office. We've got a project that needs some help, and kind of had an idea what it was going to be. And I think Pat showed up maybe a week before I did. And they said, hey, what do you think about going out to Crystal Bridges? Need some help. And I was like, or Crystal Bridges Momentary, need some help. And I'm like, I'll do whatever you guys ask, always have. So we show up there and he's like, all right, let's do a walk tomorrow morning. Let's get there. And it's like, we start walking, going through it. And he's like, all right, we got to be done 12/31, 2019, walking through there. And I'm like, all right, what day do we open?
Yeah.
They said 2/22/20. I was like, all right, we'll make sure that we're open. And we're not going to hold them up. It's like, I don't know if we're going to hit 12/31, but we're going to give it our best shot.
And to be clear, this is like what they've done to the craft cheese factory or whatever. Yeah. You can't tell what's new, what's gone down. Like it was designed in a way that you felt like you were still walking through there and the art's integrated. So when you walk through, you're like, what does done look like in here? Right?
You're thinking like, is this good? Is this past?
Like, so we're done here? Like this area's done? You know, like pipes just cut. They went through like pipe by pipe, duct by duct and said, cut this right here, leave this, take this out.
They edited the building.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the first time you walked through that job, like Jesse or when I walked through, it was like,
what are we doing?
What are we doing? What am I looking at? Like, it's not like you're walking through any other type of project you're doing.
It has like, 16 different level grade changes on the inside. You know, you had truck washes, you had ramps, you had old brick, you had... Hey, let me just tell you, the first time I ever got keys to that place, did I tell you that story?
So
I had this little iPhone flashlight, and they gave me the keys, and I went in there, and I was like, man, I cannot see anything. There's no windows in there, right? I get 3/4 of the way in there, and I see all these red eyes. Dude, I'm telling you, I ran like nobody's business. I hit every level. I fell like 16 times. When I made it out of there, I was bleeding. I couldn't tell if I'd been bit. I swear there was things chasing me. But that's the momentary. Like, you're right. Yeah. You can't tell. They wanted it to look like art was being produced. Yeah. You had craft cheese being produced, and then how do you make art feel like it's being produced?
Yeah.
And the finishes on the rooftop bar, that was one of the areas that were really lagging. Mm-hmm. High-end finishes, very unique, no glass in, and we were just getting ready to get to the point of getting dried in, and we micromanaged that thing. Broke, 3,000 square feet up there or something. Mm-hmm. Broke it into quarters, and just managed it to a level to just keep that project going.
Yeah.
It was whatever it took. The whole team bought in. We brought in a lot of players, and I think there's a lot of trust that started, at that point once getting that pulled off, honestly.
Yeah. That forged our trust, really. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what you said about Moshe was that Alice had the trust in you, right? Mm-hmm. And it sounds like the trust between the team was built there at the Momentary.
Yeah, well, and Moshe's tough on new people coming in. He wants to make sure that you're capable of doing what you're capable of doing. I mean, and Moshe makes no bones about it. If he doesn't like it, you're going to tear it down, and there's an expense to that. But
turns out,
I to try to impress an architect that has done work all across the world, to the highest standards, you better have an A team. Mm-hmm. Trust me. I mean, Flintco had to have the very best on that job, or that man would be extremely upset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just went to the website here a couple weeks ago and was perusing some of the projects, and I was just jaw on the floor, just looking at how incredible they are. So let's talk about the Crystal Bridges project. That the grand opening here. We had the gala last week. The grand opening is the ribbon cuttings tomorrow. Let's talk a little bit about that, about the complexity, and Scott, maybe what you saw in the Momentary team that allowed them the opportunity to work at Crystal Bridges.
Well, I think at that time we mandated that Jesse had to go to Crystal Bridges. I mean, it's all about relationships, right? And the man next to me proved that I could have his trust. He'd do whatever it takes. And so I remember telling Patrick, I said, be careful what you ask for. Some of the best jobs that you ever had are the ones you turned down. Mm-hmm. And I said, this one will eat your lunch if you can't, pull it off the concrete. I seen grown men cry in the first phase. We tore down a $450,000 wall because Moshe could stick his thumb in a vibration cavity.
Yeah, rock pocket or something.
Yeah. And I've seen people walk off. We closed the job trailer during the first phase because we went through 6 different leaders from the previous company. And I was like, boy, this don't bode well. And if Flintco really wants this, they got to be prepared. Mm-hmm. But I think the best part of Crystal Bridges, we got to do that we did a lobby redo. We took an open air lobby and we put an atrium on it. I say it was little. It was by far one of the toughest jobs we've ever done. You literally pulled it off while we had 1 million visitors coming through the exact same door.
Wow.
Yeah, it's probably the toughest 4,000 square foot job we've been a part of. I remember we were at Momentary. Pat's like, hey, let's go on a field trip. So like, all right, where are we going? We're going Crystal Bridges. So we load up, we go down there, and my mom, the spider, was in there. He's like, hey, what do you think about moving the spider and putting a 50-foot glass dome over the top of this? I'm like, okay, whatever, Patrick, this ain't happening. He's like, no, we're going to do it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, really? He's like adamant about it. And probably the planning that took place on moving the spider, executing it, the teamwork, getting with the curators and everything, the art team, hand in hand, developing that plan, kind of set the tone for, getting that glass dome installed, and pre-con comes in and says, hey, we're going to do all this at night. himself. And I'm like, come on, Clint, like, do we really want to do this project at night? Like, let operations take a look at it. Let's start developing a plan. I think we had some 2 o'clock in the mornings, quite a few 2 o'clock to 10 o'clocks in there, but very well. We worked hand in hand with the team, security, everything else, made sure every visitor got in there, no incidents. I mean, it was just flawless execution, honestly.
Well, let me just tell you, that was the first job. I don't know if y'all know that, but we were supposed to hard bid that. That was really, the Momentary carried some momentum, but Alice's directive, and that was really a Walton directive, we hard bid everything. And working with Flintco during that time, I went to Rod Bigelow, he's the executive director, still is today. I said, you're going to have to have a lot of trust in me on this one. I said, I'm not putting this thing out to bid. We're really going to try to dive into CMR. We're going to dive into good pre-con. We're going to partner. And that was really the first time that we went away from a hard bid. And that was really a test. I think that was the Momentary was a good test, but now you're messing with a world-class architect. Yeah. With lots of visitors. You mess up there, you're not going to recover easily. And to pull off that atrium gave us, without a doubt, the momentum to move to the next phase. And, we didn't really have a next phase planned. I think Alice and Moshe talked about it in a recent interview. I was just happy we had an atrium that was enclosed. We expanded the gallery. Alice came to me and she said, I think that we need to have Moshe do a whole master plan. We need to expand someday. She said, I promise you not now. I wouldn't do that to you. 25 years. Let's do a 25-year master plan. And then she came back. She said, no, let's do 50 year. I said, you got it. She said, Moshe's going to turn 83. By the time we finish, we need to really make sure we cement his plans for the future. Nobody else can touch this building except Moshe. And I called Moshe up, and he's like, oh, I'm super excited. Let's do it. What was going to change this time is we didn't have anybody with any museum experience for the most part on phase one. Phase two, now I have everybody who thinks they're a museum director. And or above, that even the culinary person felt like, I know what I'm doing. We got to make sure that Moshe can pull this off. And Moshe came back and he said, hey, I have a surprise. He said, I'm going to bring a model. And I was like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. I said, I don't think we have it fully programmed. He said, no, I have it fully figured out. I was like, okay. So that guy pulls up. They pull up this U-Haul truck and they unload this 10-foot model.
No way.
And I was like, this thing's fully been thought out. What's he doing?
Yeah.
And he's flying in. He said, Scott, how about you and I and Rod and Alice get together and we're going to show her the model. And I got Rod and I said, look at this model. He's like, oh, Lord, what has he done? And I said, well, he's taking some liberties. Yeah. And so Alice came down and she's like, okay, Moshe, what do you got? And he walks her through this model, and we had this great video of the master architect and the owner going through every detail and everything. And she's smiling and everything. And she turns to me and she said, whatever I said about building something in 20 years, forget it. I want to start it now.
Oh, okay. Plot twist. Yeah, here it comes.
Well, but here's the good thing is we already had the contractor on site. I already had pre-con that knew our building, knew everything about us, had worked with our team, worked through all the programming. And so they were, without a doubt, the right choice. And that's where we went right into the phase two.
Only because they pulled off the atrium.
I think the atrium showed Moshe that A, the museum had needs.
Yeah.
2, we had a contractor that could pull it off. And 3, he says, and I was in Wichita when he said it, that Crystal Bridges is the best thing that he has ever done.
Wow.
That he feels most connected, and he was ready to pull off, what he considered his final best chapter would be the addition in Bentonville, Arkansas.
That's got to be a proud moment.
Yeah, it's a good feeling when looking back and seeing some of the challenges we've overcome. But since August, we've just been really focused on how do we make sure this next endeavor we do has that exact same level of success. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, when we were first introduced to what it was and what was going to happen, it was a lot. But over the time, just like when we had that walk with Jesse, it was a lot to think about how we were going to do that. But when you get together, myself, Jesse, Luke Wanzer, other people that have been a part of this team, you really start to dissect it, pull it apart, and you start to feel really good about the plan and how it's going to work. And having several success stories under us makes us really confident about this next phase. Jesse said something the other day that brought me a lot of confidence. We're going to keep it light here for a second. He said, we may not be the smartest dudes around town, but get three of us together, we can outsmart just about anybody. And that really has rang true. I mean, I think the way that Luke and Jesse and I work together and challenge each other, it's a good partnership. I mean, I've really enjoyed working with those two, and just the level of work ethic and craftsmanship and just dedication that they bring to this client and this project. It's really cool to be a part of. And we've everything we've tried to dissect as a part of this next project and what it's going to take, we've come up with really great solutions. And when we pressure test those with other similar sized projects across our company, I'm always pleasantly surprised with the solutions that we've came up with and the approach we have. Just how close we were to what the right solution is. So
yeah, we've always have had a conversation about whatever somebody mentions. It's like, okay, so it's validated our thinking, our thoughts, and everything. And I mean, the one thing is we haven't always agreed upon everything as part of our team here, but I mean, we all have the common goal defined and what we want success to be.
Well, let's just be honest with you. I tell people this all the time, whether it's $1,200 a square foot, $1,400 a square foot. Every time I place my foot on the ground, I better see some quality, right? Because you're paying for it. I was thinking about the biggest hurdles through that whole project. And it's often the ones that are overlooked. But you have an incredible ability to... I've seen him talk to our chief curators, to our executive directors. He just has this approachability where I was like, man, she's tough. And there's Jesse talking to her. But let's not forget, you dynamited rock next to millions of dollars of paintings. Mm-hmm. Like close.
Within 80 feet.
Within 80 feet. Oh and let me just tell you, when I was trying to explain to our registrar, I think I told her 200 feet. And she was having a conniption fit about that. She said, if a flake of paint falls off, she will haunt me in And I said,
that's the funniest thing I've heard in my life.
I said, that is rude. I didn't tell you that, Jesse, but she was going to haunt me. And you pulled that off flawlessly. I mean, and let's just be honest. This isn't just for them looking for chips of paint. They put sensors all over that museum so if they could feel vibration, they were shutting the job down. They were going to shut the job down. And, man, you want to talk about pressure. I mean, you're not even talking about pouring concrete at that point in time. You're talking about art hanging on a wall, and how are we protecting that?
And you're blasting rock. So talk a little bit about that process.
So, I mean, we changed our philosophy several times through the process, and we were going to start blasting individual layers, and we decided to go deck blasting, which would be drilling from the top all the way down and doing one blast through sequence. I think the state of Arkansas allows 1 foot per second, and we blasted at 0.4.
Oh, wow.
So when we're sitting here talking about blasting, we did a test blast on site, and we were all set up for it, gauged. Everybody had their phones out, going to videotape it, thinking, "Oh, this is going to be cool." Goes off, and it's like,
That's
"Oh
it?
man, that was it."
Yeah.
So it's like, it's all controlled. It's a science.
Yeah.
And it's very impressive what these guys do. There was a blast or two where we were sitting in the office trailer thinking, oh God, what just happened? We felt that one.
Yeah.
We better be making some phone calls and checking on to see. But overall, the guys that we brought in, just coordinating with, I go back to working with the security team, how we're shutting down trails, the roads around the facility, the project. It went flawless. It was just the planning.
Yeah.
Was just the effort we put into the planning was tremendous, and that made that project a success.
Oh, and by the way, you're building in a floodway.
Yeah.
Correct.
Not a floodplain, a floodway.
Floodway. That means it happens more often than not. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one of the other hurdles. What are some other the hurdles you were thinking about, or do you have a good water story to tell us? A couple of you guys.
I'd say on the water side, I think what I remember was when we were doing the dome and the flood out. We got 7 inches of rain in 4 hours, and we experienced firsthand what it was like. Probably when they were building the original, what they dealt with. We were pretty lucky on phase 2 that we never had any major events like that 7 inches. We had I think the tornado came through, weather event, had some water back up into the building. I think one of the other challenges is, there's a 36-inch sewer that runs through the middle of our job site that we relocated, moved. The challenge is the rock, the concrete. We put together a heat map of all the dangers and all the things that concerned us on this project. And it was probably the longest list I've been a part of creating of all the concerns and the challenges that we faced. It was just made probably people ask, why are we doing this job?
Yeah, exactly. Tough PRC. Is that
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm hearing there?
Yeah, for sure.
Scott, what are some of the other hurdles you think about through the project?
I was always nervous about concrete. Concrete is exposed for everybody. It goes back to you can't hide it.
Yep.
So whatever mistake, you're going to have to live with it. You have a working model right next to it that you can compare to it. You have to do at least as good or better, right? I think the concrete, our first go at this, we went through 2 concrete companies, and it was a mess. And so the second one, I think everybody was like, here you go again. So I was nervous about that. I think the second thing is that now we had people watching everywhere. God, people coming out of the woodwork. They were looking at galleries watching. So, they're going to see your trash. They're going to see if people are arguing and fighting and everything. It was like being in a theater.
Yeah.
And people had a 180-foot wide view of what was going on. So I was nervous about that. I was nervous about Moshe making changes midstream, which he did. I'll tell you a little story. It was about that clear story window.
Yep.
The clear story window in one of our galleries was going to be a first. Moshe was determined to add natural light. Alice was determined to have natural light. Our curator said absolutely not. And so we were really caught, between trying to satisfy the owner, the architect, and our curators. And they talk about these death rays that come in and impact art.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember we had an opportunity. I was with Clint and you, Patrick, and we had an opportunity to price it, think about it. Jesse was probably thinking, no, do not do that. And so I went back to Alice and I said, well, Alice, I got good news. I said, it's too expensive. So I think this is an easy answer. We're just not going to do it. And she has these fingernails and she starts tapping them on the desk. I'm Alice's longest standing employee, right? 18 years. I knew the fingernails were not good. And she looks at me and she says, so we're now spending your money, huh? And I was like, nope. I'm saving you money today. And she said, well, Scott, it's my money and I want that darn window. And I said, well, we're going to put that window in. And but that clear story window was a challenge because it came late in the game.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I think the greatest thing that I saw this week is I had the opportunity. So they wanted me at the founder's reception when Moshe came in. So I met Moshe at 4:00, and he was going to be keyed in on everything because he knew we had the gala that was coming down the road.
Oh yeah.
And everything else. And we walked through the upper gallery, the temp gallery. You know, he was smiling, and I was walking with his wife, Mahal. She's such a cheerleader of his. She's so quiet. She's so thankful. And he was checking out the floor, and he was smiling. And we left that gallery, and we're heading north. And we start to walk down the stairs by the museum store, and he looks up, and there's the Oculus. And he knows that was a big win for him, you know, because that was the last minute change. That, man, it's beautiful. We needed it. And as he walks down that stairs, he gets down to the second to the bottom step, and he puts his hands on the wooden baluster right there. And he puts his head down, and he puts it back up, and he gets these tears, and he motions Mahal over. And so me and him and her are in this hug because he's looking down the Gallery 8 bridge corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "That is amazing."
Wow.
He said, "Is that not beautiful?" And she just hugs her husband and says, "Moshe, it is beautiful." And it is one of the greatest things, and probably the most real that I have ever seen him.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can have the greatest design in the world, but if you don't have a contractor that can pull it off.
Yeah. Doesn't understand craftsmanship, right?
Doesn't understand craft. And let me just tell you, Gen 2 is what I call this edition. This is Generation 2. I was with Rod this morning, in fact, 7:15 in the morning, and he said, G2 it's even better. I said, it is.
Wow.
I said, it is.
How does that make you guys feel?
I feel like I took for granted the views I had when we were building it for the past few years. Yeah. I think when you show up every day and you're surrounded by just the beauty and nature that Crystal Bridges has and the architecture, it's easy to take for granted that that's the kind of project we got. I mean, how many times you walk them down those stairs, Jesse?
Oh, I mean, I can't even count. I think this spring, you know, when they were setting up their artwork, going back out there and the fountain's running and just seeing it standing in the middle of the fountain, it just was like, all right, this is what it took. This was 3.5, 4 years of effort, and it's beautiful. I mean, I just can't put it into words, honestly.
You know what's amazing? I was walking through the museum the other day, and there's Flintco people walking around. I'm thinking, that has nothing to do with the expansion. So I go up to Will. I say, like, what's going on? We're taking care of the benches now. We're adding these pads to it. They've asked us to do this. So now I have all these general contractor employees walking around hiring general contractors. That takes a lot of trust. Mm-hmm. I have curators that say, hey, where's Flintco? Let's have them do that.
Wow.
I'm going to write a book. Everybody knows my book. It's called The Last 30 Days.
Yep.
I have had the best starts with GCs. In the last 30 days, it can completely fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you what, from an owner, you can buy a car and they do a great job. Man, great salesman, great vehicle, and you go back into the service and it's horrific experience. Mm-hmm. You're like, I am never going to buy from them again.
Yeah.
It's the last 30 days, and I can give you examples. I'm not, but where it all went downhill.
Yep.
And I was so disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
The last 30 days with Flintco,
mm-hmm.
man, I got to see them at the gala and celebrate. I got to see them at the director's reception last night. Man, well done. The last 30 days. You all should be extremely impressed. Or I'm impressed. I mean, but you should know how I give you all such great pat on the back for the last 30 days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. Great job.
I will tell you, from an owner standpoint. I mean, I've used other companies, you know that. The job site goes as the leadership goes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just the bottom line. I've been on job sites that are chaos, and man, it's not a good experience. And then I go on job sites that it's a calm leader, and then they have these insurgents. Insurgents, where I call young people. You have the people who've been around a long time, and they understand the peaks and the valleys. And then you have these insurgents. Man, they jump the curb, they hit a tree, they jump back on the road, and you're like, oh my God, I got to close my eyes, I can't watch. But they move the needle 2 clicks to the right. You know, because we just get older and we need those insurgents to do that. The incumbents are the ones that just like, okay, let them do it. I never heard, now I'm sure there were, but I never heard of one argument, not one fight, not a raised voice, even when something had to be redone. You know, all jobs have things to be redone. It never percolated to the top. I will tell you this, I've never had a job go this smooth. And it was an expensive job. You had floodway that we talked about. Mm-hmm. You had Moshe Safdie. Mm-hmm. You had to have perfection.
Blasting.
You had blasting. And let me just tell you, I don't know if they did a good job of hiding it from me, but it was the smoothest job. I've never had a job that you didn't have to turn over it the next day, you know, and it was, I've never had people work with our curators, our staff, our mayors, everything. I've never, ever had a job that went that smooth.
Wow. That's a big congratulations to you guys right here.
It was pretty hard to hide anything, especially on this project, because the existing bridge, we were a piece of art on display 100% during this entire construction phase. So if we tore a wall out, everybody
knew.
Everybody knew what was going on. So,
Well, boy, you set the bar high. You added that pressure on you on the next one now.
Love to hear that. Scott, tell us a little bit about the importance of artwork to the art and wellness enterprise. Tell us a little bit like why there is a big focus on that.
Well, we have 4 pillars, and that was established in 2010. We carried it all the way to 2018. You know, art, of course, right? Nature, architecture, and education. And I remember asking Alice, I said, you know, are every one of these pillars really equal? And she sat me down and gave me a 30-minute lecture about nature is something that brings her peace. Education is how we transform first-generation museum goers. Y'all know that we're first-generation museum goers. You're like, what? People have been going to the museum for years. No, we had first-generation museum goers coming to Crystal Bridges. Alice always talks about when she was in a hospital, somebody brought in some watercolors, and she was really down, depressed, and how art pulled her out and transformed her life. But art is something that we feel in the construction world that can't resonate with us. And I promise you, everybody in this room saw some art over the last 10 years that you're thinking, man, that's pretty transformative. That thing really speaks to me. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee it, these 2 at the end of the table, they know some artists now. Mm-hmm. And when she asked them, hey, what's your favorite artist? They can tell you. And we rode those 4 pillars. I thought that was it. I thought we were done. And, 2000, we opened up the Momentary. 1 month later, COVID hit.
Yep.
And she came back and she said, you know what, I have the 5th pillar. And she said, I've been holding off for the last 15 years because I wanted to do the first 4 very, very well. And she said, but if we do this 5th pillar, which is wellness, and we integrate all those 4 other pillars, we're going to create something that takes this place to a whole different level.
That's incredible. Scott, I also want to visit with you a little bit about the vision of the healthcare campus as we're coming up on starting some activities and kind of what the AWE's vision is for all of that and how it can change the world.
Well, I think you all know that Arkansas is near the bottom, 49th or 50th in healthcare, depending on what you're looking at, reimbursement rates and everything else. We're near Texas that has one of the highest reimbursement rates. We have 70% of our medical students exported to different states. Think about that. 70% of medical students that got scholarships in the state of Arkansas have gone to different states.
Yeah, leave and never come back, right?
Leave and never come back, because we know for sure, because we've studied that about 90% of students that graduate in that area reside, that go to either do residencies or internships, stay in those same areas. And so, the rising costs, Alice is always about access and how do rural care, how do they have the same access as somebody from a big city? So you have a state that's lagging behind. You have exporting of students. This is the magic of Alice Walton. She said, we've got to fix that conduit. So in one just brief 2-year period, she said, if we're really going to do wellness right, then we need to build that conduit. So we're going to build a medical campus, for MD program. Now think about doing a medical university from scratch. It just doesn't happen very often. There's just a handful that have been done in the last 5 years.
Yeah, no way.
And you concentrate on rural students. And because we know that 85% of rural students that graduate with a medical degree go back to rural communities.
Wow.
So you recruit some of the best and brightest rural students. You concentrate on Arkansas. You cover the cost for the first 5 cohorts. So the first 5 classes, if you can take that away, build a first class university. So that's step 1. So now you're building a university to build into an academic medical campus. And then you say, why not here? Why can't we build something that becomes a draw and provides the most incredible medical experience, and it happens right here in Bentonville? And then you talk to your friends at Cleveland Clinic, and you talk to your friends at cancer centers, and you figure out, why not here? Our quality of life, it's been changed. 10 years, our quality of life was completely different. Now it's more rich and everything else. So Alice dove straight in. She said, let's build a conduit of students. Let's build a world-class medical campus. I will never forget, we put out a RFP for architects, and we were just going to build a 150,000 square foot building. She promised me that we were only going to do 150,000 square feet.
Uh-huh.
And I remember sitting in her house, and she said, Scott, it shouldn't tax you too much. I know we got phase 2 going on. And, oh, by the way, we have campus housing at Flintco's building. She said, but it's 150,000 square foot. Heck, you could do that with your eyes closed. I said, okay. I said, that's it? She said, that's it. And my God, a year later, we're doing like 2.5 million square feet. She lied. I mean, and she laughs. And she said, I know. She said, but this is going to be the place. And so let me just tell you, the medical campus, 3 ingredients for success: great architects, great owner, great contractor. Look, what did I do? I lifted and placed Patrick, Jesse, Luke, that whole team. And I said, the only way, Alice, that I'm going to do this is if I can take Clint and that whole team, and we can go. I'm not putting out a hard bid, and you're going to trust me, and this is the way we're going to do it. That's the only way I do it. She says, take Flintco.
Wow.
And that's what we did. And look, I've never learned so much about medical in my entire life. I've been immersed with it over the last 3 or 4 years. It's hard. It is hard. It's expensive. She's wanting to do something that Murdodd with Canon, their chief architect, said he has never seen done anywhere in the world before.
Wow.
You take an operator like Mercy, you add Cleveland Clinic. Keep in mind, that's like oil and vinegar. You do not bring multiple big companies together and say, this is what we're going to do. You add that component, and then you say, we're going to have world-class wellness. We're going to add technology. We're going to add innovation. And I want somebody from Berryville or Lincoln, Nebraska to come here and they feel welcome. So if it's never been done before, how are we going to pull that off? And so for the last year, Patrick, I mean, I have seen them in meetings with me from St. Louis. I've seen them in healthcare. We've traveled to Cleveland. We've been everywhere. Funny story. I'm at Cleveland Clinic, and they put the contractor and the owner in a small group and put the architects and our doctors from Heartland Whole Health in another group. And I was thinking, that's not smart. And so we are circulating into the world's best cardiovascular hospital. I mean, that's undisputed. And we're in there with this surgeon, and he's telling us everything. And he said, it's time now for Q&A. And I'm thinking, we have outkicked our coverage right here. And that darn Scott Momentary, he can't keep his mouth shut. He's our VP of construction. And this surgeon, world-class surgeon, says, so let's talk about robotic cardiovascular internal surgery. He said, what do you all think? That's something you're going to incorporate. Well, I'm not saying anything because you know what? We're not qualified to say a word. And that Scott Momentary says, absolutely we are. I looked at him and I was like, Clint, don't say a word. Don't, nobody talk. But man, we've been in the trenches and that's the deal. Success is a foxhole. And you know what goes on a foxhole? Sometimes it's not pleasant. There's a lot of dirt underneath the fingernails. There's crying and they're celebrating. But you know, I've been with GCs that on top of a foxhole, and they're talking to me like, hey, Scott, hey, you know what? Here's how I think you can get out of it. You know, we're going to give you a ladder. We think, you know what? I don't need somebody to give me a ladder. I need somebody down there with me. And that's what's going to make a great project. I will tell you, the best projects that I've ever belonged to are the ones that are painful. And this one is painful because there is so much money involved. Our time frame is unrealistic. Oh, by the way, let's just add a school. Let's add we were going to build a hospital. And all of a sudden there's a hospital. Oh, we're going to do something 350,000 square foot. Now it's 800,000 square feet. It's 500,000 square feet. Oh, let's do 1.1 million square feet. I have never seen anything like it. It will test the mettle of Flintco. It will test the mettle of myself, our owner. I mean, we're dealing in dollars that we've never spent before. I could take all the building square footages that we've done on our entire campus. I could put them in one of our buildings. I could take the Heartland Whole Health, the expansion, the School of Medicine, and frosting of other buildings, Momentary. I could put them in one of these buildings. That's how big they are. We have no room to mess up, but the cards are stacked against us. And by the way, we have families, we have work-life balance. We got to maintain that. You know, Jesse's going to probably grow hair during this process. Patrick's going to lose hair.
Yeah.
But boy, I tell you what, we're in that foxhole together.
Yep.
I'm at a loss. Like, for the first time, I'm at a loss doing one of these. This is absolutely incredible to think about what the healthcare campus is going to be. I'm excited that we can be a part of it. I'm excited for the lives that will be changed there. I think it's a great vision. I guess I'm also excited it went from 150,000 square feet to 2.5 million square feet. All of that is that sounds excellent. You know, Scott, earlier you were talking about craftsmanship is brought about by good leadership, and I think, you know, the same could be said for world-class projects are brought about by good leadership, and the leadership of you and everybody that works for the enterprise to really see the landscape literally changed, but lives being changed by what y'all are doing at AWE. I'm proud that Flintco is associated with that. I'm proud that Flintco is playing a part in that for you and doing a good job doing that. And with that, I say thank you for being here. I say thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunities. I'm humbled. I'm not even a part of the job. I'm just a part of the company. I'm humbled to be a part of what y'all are doing. And it's been really awesome having you on today. And thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
You.
Such a long